Welcome, everybody. This is Microsoft 365 Platform Community Call. It is December 28th. We are in this weird time zone and days which doesn't really exist, which is after the Christmas, before the New Year, and nobody knows how it's supposed to work or not, or what is the season. But as mentioned, as we started, so today is going to be without actual demos. So we can do ad hoc demos as needed. That's why Brian is on the call. So he promised to do all of the demos, right, Brian? So
of course.
Not putting you on a spot or anything. So, yeah. Let's see how it goes, and let's see what kind of discussions we can have. And we can go back and have a discussion about the winter tires, absolutely, as we go there. But just to recap some of the assets and slides. So not going to spend too much time in here, but there's a lot of existing assets and content available, which we absolutely love people to take advantage. And if you don't like or something is missing, please let us know. We need to understand what you need to be successful in landing or starting to use Microsoft 365 platform. And if you have good ideas, reach out, because we're always looking for making this area better. A lot of URLs, AKMS M365 Bmp is the one URL to remember. Just a sidetrack, as this will not be the official, let's say, Tuesday call discussion. We're looking into moving away from using the Bmp term, most likely. So let's see, how do we transition some of these URLs, because it seems to be confusing people. It's like, well, what is this Bmp versus the official guidance, the documentation, and community? And it's like, no, it's the same thing. So let's see, how do we transition and use the terminology in future? But it seems to confuse people. So it's like, I want to have the official stuff, not the Bmp stuff, which is like, well, but it is the same stuff. So let's see how we do this in the future. Maybe it will be a marketing decision done by some marketing directors somewhere. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, one of the other slides, which we always show here and remind people, sign up for the Microsoft 365 developer program. This is really cool stuff. So you will get a free E5 developer tenant with 25 accounts. And of course, if you use it for developer usage, it will automatically renew in 90 days. If you don't use it for developer usage, it's going to expire. And by the way, there's also a bit more intelligence behind the scenes related on if you are taking advantage of this and not using that for actual developer stuff, it's going to expire even faster than that, because there has been a lot of cases, and there's actually quite a lot of videos in YouTube which are explaining how to get a free Microsoft 365 tenant without any money, which is like, well, that's not what this is intended for. So we need to be a bit more strict on how we are dealing this and sharing this out. Moving on other things, just a reminder, we have also, this is a great timing of the year. We recommend people to have a look on our learning materials from the Microsoft Learning. So there's a lot of existing material available, a lot of the new stuff and a lot of old stuff. So, well, not old stuff, but it's always getting up to date as well. So we update all of the training materials in a quarterly basis. So we try to keep them up to date on the latest and greatest. Now, one more in here, which we're always keeping in the slides as well, but we're increasing the number. So if you're looking into getting started on implementing anything in Microsoft 365 platform, have a look on our sample gallery from where you can easily access all of the samples from Microsoft or from the community. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible to find Power Platform samples, Viva Connection samples, SharePoint samples, Microsoft Graph samples, and so on from one single location. And we're looking into improving this as well. So all of the feedback is more than welcome, and we're trying to make it easier for you to find the relevant samples, regardless of what areas in Microsoft 365 you're looking for. I updated, by the way, this number to 640. I think it's 639 right now if you go to the site, but there's some pending changes, and it will jump to 640 quite soon. Now, I know that David is on the call, calling not from a typical location, so you can actually do this slide, right?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Vesa. Well, friends, if you are new to the community or even a veteran to the community, we would love to see you get more involved and reach out, contribute, utilize the resources that are available to you. But we understand that there might be some blockers or some hurdles that may prevent you from getting more involved. So Sharing is Caring is a program that is here to provide you hands-on guidance within the community, whether you're going to use or contribute back. You can see a variety of session topics from Power Platform first-time contributor to first-time presenter. If you'd like to present on a call, but you're a little nervous because maybe it's your first time, we'll help you. We'll even buddy up with you and do it together. So we invite you to go to aka.ms/sharing is caring. We've got all kinds of sessions scheduled for the upcoming 2022 year and beginning months, plus our ever popular AMAs, open discussions similar to this one here. We know the community really loves that. And we're going to have PnP Search in January. So again, all safe space, not recorded, great opportunities to collaborate with members of Microsoft, PnP, and the community. So feel free to join and register for any of them. aka.ms/sharing is caring. That's it, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, David, on that one. I'm adjusting here things in a second. There's good amount of questions actually coming in chat. Thank you for those from Gautam and Eric. We'll get to them because, again, we do not have demos today, so we'll have more Q&A and an AMA discussion. So let's certainly talk about those things because there's a good amount of feedback for sure. And on Eric's question related on a lot of assets and resources available, we do acknowledge that, and that's why, for example, this program exists. So the Sharing is Caring is really for there to onboard new people and helping them to get started on the Microsoft 365 platform, which is massive. So there's a different set of components and technologies available. Now, related on our community calls, we have quite a few of them. This week on Thursday, we actually do have a normal community call coming up for the Viva Connections and SharePoint Framework community call. As we communicated before the holiday season, we actually want to have the recurrent calls being executed in quotes normally, as normal as possible. Tuesday calls were basically transformed to be more AMA, but Thursday calls we still have normal demos as well. And this is mainly because it's not the holiday season across the world actually. So in many regions it's a normal weeks, and also even though it's a holiday season, I think every now and then people want to see other people in the community as well. So people can choose if they want to join in here or if, of course, even better, spend time with the family if that is their objective or chosen way of spending time. I have no idea what I'm saying. Good. Anyway, so you probably understood what I'm trying to say in a certain way. Cool. There was actually a few updates related on news on the Microsoft 365 platform from last week. So we have 2 new articles related on Microsoft Graph, which are both related on Microsoft Graph Booking APIs. So basically, the Microsoft Graph Booking APIs is moving from beta endpoints to the V1 endpoint. So they are now G8. And then there are new features, and there are a few changes related on the Booking API. So if you have been building something related on Booking API, so you can now flip the endpoint and not to be the beta anymore, but to use the V1 as the URL. And before we go to the free flow questions this week, we don't want to miss our Together mode feature. So let me actually do this. I will start the recording already on that screen, and let me flip the mode to be in the Together mode. And let's see how many people do we get this time in the picture. And I can see some Christmas and holiday spirit there as well. So that's really, really good. So let me actually flip the mode. It's too bad that we don't have a holiday with the 50 people attendees. So let's actually do something not dark. Let's do that. That's good. Good. We are already recording, but still getting more people joining. Let's wait a few more seconds. We're in no rush this week because, again, we don't have any community demos, but let's do some hand waving, everybody. Seb isn't on the call showing us example, but let's try to do some hand waving. Seb is really good on showing the example in these things. Cool. Thanks, everybody. We'll grab a GIF animation out of that and sharing that within the recording summary. So let me actually stop the recording. Thank you for that. Those are always fun to do, and it's good to see the actual people behind the scenes. Now, like we did last week, I wanted to basically say thank you, everybody, for being with us on the 2021, and we're absolutely looking forward on the 2022 together with you and building the community and building more and more activities together and building samples and guidance for you to take advantage as well. But like mentioned, this week, no demos. This is intended to be super open flow question, AMA, Q&A discussion, if there's very good points which we didn't already address on this chat. Brian, you've been chatting on or answering some of the questions. Anything, can you recap on what's happening on the chat?
There was a question about the developer program tenants. As you mentioned, they are valid for 90 days. As long as you keep using them, they will self-renew. Someone did ask, I think it was Eric, what happens if you pass that 90-day period and it goes into kind of like I think they call it a grace period. I'm not sure how long that is. That's 30 days, 60 days. The tenant is still out there. I believe if you continue using it after that 90-day period, it should, in air quotes, should reactivate itself. If it doesn't, though, I believe you can submit a support request through the admin portal to try and get that renewed. I'm not sure. Do you know if there's any other official process for that, Vesa, outside of that?
I know it's basically pinging using the admin portal and the connection details from there to reach out to the right people. So there's a separate group of, not separate, they're still Microsoft, but Microsoft is a pretty big company. But it's not us in this call who are managing all of the renews of the tenants. Yep. Yeah, we're a bit of a small company, so just stay small.
Well, only 190,000 people, I think, now after the latest number I've heard.
Yeah. That's pretty wild, actually. So
yeah,
where are they? Why aren't all of them joining on this call? I don't get it. What are they missing?
Everyone drop everything and join into the call.
Yes.
If we ever max out on the number of people we're allowed in this call, we should come up with some kind of challenge, Vesa.
That's true. That is actually true. Now, the challenge is that in the Microsoft Teams calls, the attendee numbers are growing all the time. I think we are now in 1,000 max. So,
awesome.
Because I guess we maxed out at some point at 200, whenever that was the max. I'm not watching David, but he doesn't see me watching him. But he's nodding, but I can't remember what we have maxed out. At least the Skype call whenever we were.
Oh yeah, we broke Skype
numerous times. Yes.
Yeah.
There was another question in here about for those dev tenants. Is there any possibility to get multi-geo environments?
That's a good question.
To my knowledge, no on that one, but Vesa, I'm sure you may have some more.
Yeah, we did check that with the program people. They're looking into potentially doing something in the future, but currently it's not possible. It would be additional costs for them to do that, and they wouldn't want to do that for every single tenant. But there might be an alternative process for that in the future at some point. But for now, unfortunately, no. And for GCC, good question from Jim Duncan. GCC is basically one of the governmental tenants in US, and it would be great to have one of those tenants. Unfortunately, there is no test tenants for those either, which complicates things a lot. Louis would be needing that as well. That's actually a really good feedback. I'll take a note on that because there is a updated focus on those people, the governmental tenant people on the community, and how to educate the partners on what we can build in the GCC and the governmental clouds, because there are differences on the capabilities. So having the developer tenant for them would be really, really good. So taking notes and providing that feedback internally. Okay. A lot of demand for that. I do understand that. So for those who do not know that, just to recap, we had Jay 2 weeks back or 3 weeks back, actually dropping by in the Tuesday call, explaining the differences between the GCC and GCC High, and I can't remember what the third tenant is, but basically they're more secure, and so therefore there are limitations how certain capabilities work. And as you are a partner, it's a bit complicated to target your offerings for GCC and GCC High and DoD. Thank you, Jim, for your offerings, and that makes the life quite difficult. And there isn't a exactly similar things in the European clouds, at least for now. So let's see if that happens at some point.
Convincing some customers that the cloud is safer than their local machine in a closet somewhere.
Yep.
It feels like it shouldn't be a problem in 2021 when major governments are using it, but even Office 365 is like, no, go away.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is horrible.
Yeah. It's so there are separate URLs and sites. I don't want to do Google search, sorry, Bing search right now live, but there are separate sites where we have all of the certificates, EU certificates, and everything else, and compliance information shared. What the cloud does comply, and the Microsoft Cloud, I guess it's the most flexible one. But again, I don't have the facts, so wouldn't be the right person to talk about it. But it's one of those things that is it safer to Microsoft we are using the cloud for every single data what we have, and so it's basically if the cloud would be compromised, Microsoft data would be compromised as well. Our own corporate secrets. So that's the level of let's say security what we have. So I've been working remotely from home for 6 years, and all of my data is in the cloud. So if we can bet on that, it's relatively safe for everybody else to bet on that. A funny joke related on that. I have to say this quickly, because again, we are in a free flow meeting. So a few years back, whenever we actually met people face to face and in person in Orlando in conferences, there was we had a stand there where people can drop by and ask questions. I think it was Orlando or maybe Chicago or San Francisco, I don't remember. But there was a person coming in and asking exactly the same question. I think it's Eric, if you were asking that, or noting the fact that, well, is the cloud safe? Can we actually do the cloud there? And we had that discussion, typical discussion that, well, is it safer for you to have an isolated data center within your closet in your office, or are you going to use the high-end data centers what Microsoft has with all of the security and layers and everything else? And the person watched me and said, yeah, typically that would be the case, but not in our case. We are much safer. And I'm like, well, excuse me. And then I watched the name and the company where the person was representing. It says Lockheed Martin, which is one of the largest manufacturers in the world. So I can bet that they have a pretty high security on their data centers as well. But anyway, for smiles and nobody's smiling.
That being said, just in case, Vesa has the entire internet backed up on a computer under his desk, so we're good no matter what.
That's exactly. So
we're good. We're good no matter what.
Yeah, I can really understand the thing you just said. I mean, I work with, for example, the nuclear industry at times, and I can understand them not wanting to move their data out into the cloud because sensitive, fairly interesting for foreign parties. But if there was a government instance in Europe, they might be interested in that. But then you have, local small 40-man companies and like, no, we like our server in the closet. And I'm really trying to convince them that no, Office 365, Microsoft 365, having everything handled by someone else is a way better option. But it's difficult working on it though.
Absolutely. And one of the directions where we are doing as a Microsoft is that you're probably seeing this already, and it's not a secret. We are pushing heavily to build data centers locally in pretty much in every single country in the world. And that's why we have Switzerland, Sweden, French, UK, Ireland, and so on. And one of the key objectives of this one is the fact that then we can start offering local cloud and local isolated cloud. And of course, as part of the EU security, not GDPR, the new one, which again, I'm not a specialist on here, but there's the new upcoming policies which we need to comply as well, which is basically that data, none of the data cannot leave the EU and the EU portals. And Microsoft is aligning on that as well. I can't remember what's the date when that is going to be enabled, but that means that not even logging or any data will be going outside of EU borders, which will be interesting from a supportability perspective. But again, it will increase the trust most likely, and then it's better for the customers for sure.
Isn't the AD currently always saved in the US right now?
No. It's
no, that can be local on a data center. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It depends really on right now it's still not in every single country, but we can see the trend. I can't comment too much detail because I don't know what's internal and what's not, but you can see the trend, how we are building the data centers locally in local countries. And that really comes back on the fact that, and then you can provide local cloud without any compliance issues. So yeah, there's an isolated Azure DC in Germany as well. Absolutely. The Germany situation has been interesting because there was the cloud which was basically aligned with the Microsoft 365, but it was operated by the Deutsche Telekom. But then that has been switching a bit, and the offerings have been switching a bit. So
Do you know the timeline for when the data centers are opening in Sweden, where we can have all the data locally inside the country?
I don't know. I cannot provide that information, so unfortunately. So, and if I would know, I wouldn't know if that's confidential or not. So it's better not for. We're getting all of this recorded, so better not say anything.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just an open question, you know. And
Yeah,
I'm moving my microphone now, so maybe you can hear me better as well.
Yep, a bit better. Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Larry, for the link of all of the data centers as well. So, and Tim actually has the service trust Microsoft.com. That's the URL, I guess, which I was referring to, related on all of the security. Yeah, so this is the one. All of the security and all of that's related on Azure and Microsoft 365, and so making sure that what are the rules and how the data is being stored and all of that, and that all of the local countries, what are they signing off around this cloud as well. So good. Any other questions? Any? How do we get a GCC dev tenant? So we talked about that one. I'm just watching the scripts and discussion. Unfortunately, GCC, there's no GCC dev tenants, and that request has been noted. I will give it to the governmental cloud people. That we really would love to have that. So our partners would really need it. So it's understandable. It's actually. It took a while even for me to get I have access now on the dev tenant, the kind of a test tenant for which is GCC high, but it's really beneficial to understand what is isolated and what's not. So the ask is understandable. We'll figure it out.
On that note, I did share a link to a form. If you are a government agency, there's certain entity types that are supported for this. They do have trials for some of those. It's not for everybody. Like if you're a solution provider, an ISV partner, or something like that, this is not included with that. But if you are a state, local, or federal government entity, there is the possibility of getting I think it's an Azure subscription. Take a look at the form that I posted into the chat window. You can fill that out and ask questions to the group who actually maintains that. There may be potential for that. So, but again, that's for the Azure side of the house. That's not for M365. So I don't know where all that crossover, how that lands.
Yep. Good. Then Craig had a question related on combining potentially the community calls, and let me clarify the situation related on that one, and let me zoom in. So this is actually from last summer. So and clarify what we're planning or trying to do here. So one of the feedback, so the left one is where we were, let's say last spring and a year ago, and we realized that it's quite hard for our community to understand when does the calls actually happen. So we were seeing a lot of attendance, for example, on the Thursday call, which happens every single Thursday at 7 a.m. Pacific time, and that helps because it happens every single Thursday at 7 a.m. So you know when it's actually happening. But we didn't see that much attendance on some of the other calls. And then as some of the community calls were happening once a month, for example, isolated call for SharePoint or isolated call for Microsoft Teams, people were really not aware when is it happening, even though they would be able to download the recurrent invite. So then we flipped the model where we basically combined these three calls for now as a one Tuesday call, which is this one where we are right now, happening every single Tuesday at 8 a.m. And then we had a discussion with some of the other community call owners that if they want, they can combine on this Tuesday call as well. The basic idea here is that you will know when the call will happen. You can allocate your time around that, but it's always consistent, and we never cancel the call, like you can see from today. And then in that call, we will share the agenda beforehand in social media and in the blogging platforms, and so you will know what are the areas what we're talking. So that will give some flexibility on having different topics in a one call across the Microsoft 365 stack, because one of the things what we also got a lot of feedback was the fact that, well, Microsoft 365 is quite complicated. There's so many bits and pieces. Do I need to choose one of these things, or do I combine one or the other things? How would I know what's the art of possible? And that's one of the key objectives why we combine the calls. Now, right now, still, we have isolated adaptive card call, identity call, and Power App call, and Office add-in call. Now, It might be that some of those calls will be combined to the Tuesday call at some point. It might be that they're not. So right now there's an ongoing discussion with adaptive card call and then the office adding card call. But for example, the Power Application call will for sure remain isolated because there's a lot of people, a lot of attendance, and it's a bit of a different, let's say, even a bit of a different audience than just the developer and the platform people. Not that it wouldn't be partly the same audience, but still there's a bit of a different, let's say, tone on that calls. But that's basically the objective in here. So we're not looking into, how would I put it? We don't want it to be too generic as well. It's all about Microsoft 365 platform. But then we want to make sure that if there's a really cool topics to cover, for example, Office add-ins or adaptive cards, we can cover 2 of them or to have 2 demos on adaptive cards per month or 3 demos per adaptive cards on month because we have every single week of one call. But again, so let's see how this goes. Right now, what we're seeing with the adaptive card, for example, is that a lot of those calls are getting canceled because they don't have content. And that's not an optimal situation. And that means that then people are like, well, I do not know if the call is happening or not. So should I keep this spot open or are they going to cancel that? And that's not an optimal situation either. So that's why we're looking into kind of a centralizing onto Tuesday. A lot of opinions.
I was just concerned that when you stated that last week, I was like, oh, how much are you all thinking about combining? Because, you know, like Power Apps itself, that group's really good. The adaptive card one, we've still been meeting. So that group's still been meeting. They haven't been canceling. They've been doing a really good job here the last couple times, actually opening it up to more of the floor. So that way they can get, you know, more feedback from the power user side of things.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a difficult thing, but and we don't want to mess up anybody who's really locked in. I want to have only on that topic. I'm not interested in anything else. But all of these calls are getting recorded and published as a recording in a YouTube. So if you miss any of the calls, you can still find the recordings and demos and all of that. So trying to be super consistent on that. Good. Upcoming presentation range of calls. Paul has a good question. So one of the things what we're trying to do with the calls is that every single call is getting promoted ahead of the time using social media, and every single demo and recording is getting promoted in social media. Now, we do acknowledge that not all of the people actually use Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn. But as an example, right now we're promoting all of this calls and recordings and demos in those 3 different locations. So in Facebook, in LinkedIn, and in Twitter. If we are missing a super, let's say, active social media platform where we should be, we can absolutely extend on there as well. But basic idea is that for every single call, at least, let's say 36 hours before we share what's going to be covered so that you know who are going to be speaking and what on that call, so you can actually make a decision that are you going to join on that. Thank you, Jim, on that joke. MySpace.
Could you share the Facebook link?
Yes. Now I need to actually.
Where I am most active at least. So.
I can 1 second. Let me. I cannot go to the because the challenge with Facebook is that if I go to Facebook using URL directly, it will show all of my stuff. So let me actually go in here.
But you don't want to dox yourself.
He does that frequently throughout the day, so it will be.
It's that one.
Natural.
Where's G? So M365 Dev is the location where the agenda and recordings and everything else is getting published. Thank you, Mike, on that feedback. Chris is doing awesome job on the list formatting calls for sure. He's having every now and then a bit of a challenge that is related on all of the other work he has to do, but I know that he would love to do even more demos. So because those are really entertaining for sure. Some people might find them a bit weird, but they're really good. So if people know Chris, they understand that it's always with a positive and with a smile on their face. So really good.
And that is authentically Chris. Like what you see and hear on those calls is really Chris. He's not putting on a show. So you got to keep coming, and you'll absolutely start to love him like a big teddy bear.
Yes, that's a good description for sure. Thank you, David, for sharing that URL, and Eric as well. Thank you. Good. Yeah, the best of the Thursday calls for sure are the ones where quizzes. And one of the things related on the call, if we come back on the calls, we always try to do 3 demos on the calls if possible. Of course, this holiday season is a bit of a different, but basic idea for these calls is always that if you're looking into saving time and you're not interested on the intros, you can always come a bit late, but then you know that we start the demo number 1 and, at 15:15 roughly, and so on. So it's predictable, people know what's happening, and it's always 3 demos. So we're trying to do that as a consistent structure. Except this call. This is the last one of the special AMA Q&A calls and just random chit-chatting. So now at the same time, we're getting a lot of feedback for people asking that, can we have these kind of office calls as an additional calls as well? So AMA stuff in the Sharing is Caring initiative is also a lot of really popular. So
yeah, we've had some thematic based on a specific initiative or program within PNP. So you see the PNP search is coming up. We've had my goodness, SPFX, the Power Platform samples, pretty much the full range. SPFX, Graph and MGT. That's actually going to be a recurring one. Seb has requested to have a recurring MGT and Graph AMA. It's probably going to be about once every other month. We've had community docs, we've had PNP.js, a number of them. And so we're also, because everyone likes kind of the open forum, we're looking to schedule potentially once a month, just an open discussion like this one that's not thematic. It'll be a variety of members of the PNP team or MVP or Microsoft that'll join in, but it'll be much like this. It'll be open forum and collaborative, able to just come on and share questions and conversation. We know, especially with us all being kind of isolated for the last couple of years, it's a really important way for us to collaborate and connect as a community.
Yeah, this isn't actually doing this over the Teams is quite decent actually with the video. So because it was a weird feeling when a few weeks back when we saw some of the people in Germany, and it's like, well, I've been seeing you all the time in the calls. So it wasn't really overwhelming. It was a bit of a weird, like, well, okay, hey, we just saw yesterday, or well, that was in Teams. So Teams is doing a decent job for sure with the videos and everything else. I haven't seen David for like what, 2.5 years, 3? I don't know.
It's been a while. Yeah.
Or Brian, we haven't actually seen in person. Like
probably 8 years now.
Tech Ready, maybe at some point.
I think it was Tech Ready back in Seattle or something like that, many years back.
Yeah, that's pretty horrifying. 8 years, maybe. Time flies. Good. And on the Sharing is Caring, just a kind of a promo as well. Pmp Search basically means to search web parts, which are using Microsoft Graph for the Microsoft Search area, or then the classic search thing. But there's an AMA coming up on that one with Frank Cornu and Mikael Svensson on 11th of January.
Yep. And they all always try to take place right after these calls, the platform calls. We try to consistently schedule them about 5 minutes after the end of this, so you have time to kind of go recaffeinate, use the restroom or stretch your legs, whatever you need to do, and then that way you kind of get a nice little string of patterns and practices in Microsoft 365 goodness. So and try to keep them consistent that way. The graph one may be a little different just because it's going to be consistently recurring. So that might be a little different. We're still working with Seb's schedule, but these ones that are specifically like this, the thematic ones, PNP Search or PNP.js, whatever the case may be, those will usually always be after this call. And again, they're great opportunities. We've seen some really amazing contributions come from being able to collaborate with the community, talking directly with the maintainers of the initiatives and the programs, and in a way that just wouldn't have worked over issues in GitHub or a discussion in GitHub. They were able to quickly go back and forth, and bam, it turned into a collaboration.
Yep.
And so really, really great opportunities.
A lot of requests or 2 requests related on the forest walks. So yeah. So for those who are wondering, so I have a habit of like putting 30-second Twitter videos just for fun. So it doesn't have to be always official. So you can share something which is something else, like walking in the forest with your dogs, because we have a forest right over there. So people are always wondering, you're living in the middle of forest. Well, actually, no, I'm living pretty close to downtown. So it's the first impressions is like, you must be living in the forest. Well, no, not really. It's just what you share in social media isn't always true. So.
Isn't all of Finland the forest or the lake?
Fair point. Fair point. Thanks, Eric.
I'm from Sweden, so I shouldn't be saying anything about that.
Exactly.
But, extremely off topic. Jim, what the heck is that setup you've got going there?
Oh yeah, Jim has a really cool.
It's a Microsoft Surface Studio with 3 extra screens attached to it.
It looks fairly awesome.
So the camera's here, but when I tip it down, now you're looking at my ceiling.
Yeah, no, we're looking from behind you.
Oh, I don't know which camera it's showing on the meeting, but
it's like the back corner.
Your director, you
awesome.
need to say for your studio director that it's flipping the right camera. So.
Go on.
I use all 4 of them.
Screens plus a TV, so.
I use all 4 of these screens and the Surface Hub that the camera's on right now. All of them.
Nice.
Wow.
Plus the TV on top. So
yeah, it's the driveway out front, so I can see people.
More
coming.
screens than anyone else. Sorry, extremely off topic. So,
No, this is good. This is free flow discussion intended to be more a social gathering this week. So typically, of course, Tuesday calls have 3 demos and all of that, but it's holiday season. So I have coffee and water. So I don't know what else people are drinking, and it's fine. So there we go.
It's all coffee and tea. All coffee and tea.
fluid restoration drink
Yes.
thingy. Salts and electrolytes.
Any other questions?
I'm working on my Lego bonsai tree.
I saw that in social media. Yeah, yes, it's pretty far actually. So, are you going to be done with that today?
Hopefully, I need to put up more shelves in my office to fit all the Lego models I keep building. So I have to expand the space to fit all the models.
Yeah.
So I need to do that first.
I gave up as well because of the space. So they're fun to build, but still. So.
Then I need to do my son's room. He's got the entire Ninjago collection, so he's got everything now. It's just mental.
Good shelving from IKEA.
Exactly. Yes. Everybody has one of these. So,
Mm-hmm.
because I can see Eric's background is exactly the same shelf, so a bit of a different size, but still.
Yeah, it's a great shelf.
It is. It is.
Mine even has a cubby for the cat, so.
Yeah. Oh, good. Any other questions? Technology questions, or we can talk about Lego as well. So, I can show
have
from
one.
here. Cool.
Vesa?
As you're asking, I'm just showing this one from here as well. So
Oh, nice. Hey, can we just get the site assets library created with the site instead of the make it when it's needed kind of thing? That's causing a lot of problems for us in some of our development.
Yeah.
Can't expect the site assets library to be there. Though style library is created automatically, which seems weird. We don't really use that much anymore. How much time does it save to defer the creation of site assets? Really?
So this
I mean,
is, yeah.
it's
So,
cool. I get that it's cool, but is it super useful to defer the creation of that library, given that it's so important?
Yeah. So I'm elaborating a bit, Jim, on your feed, but basically the problem here is that if you're doing pre-provisioning of sites, there's a lot of features and capabilities in SharePoint where engineering decided that they need to save some time, and they will provision the feature only when it's actually first time needed. Which, of course, from a performance perspective is better, and from a, let's say, storage requirement perspective is better, but then it makes it really, really difficult to pre-provision sites so that you can have the site assets and for your other libraries and all of those completed and then you're going to start uploading assets on it. Now, related on this particular case, so Jim, I think we need to follow up on this one a bit. I need to make sure after the holiday season, you need to remind me on this one, but it's basically in the lookbook side. So for those who are interested and those who do not know, we have the lookbook.microsoft.com, which, by the way, right now is not supporting the provisioning of sites. It's currently in maintenance break, which is a bit of a challenge. So if you click Add to your tenant, it's going to say that it's in maintenance break. Because of the holiday season and a few other things, we're doing some adjustments in here. But as we built this site for provision, this nice looking templates, we actually figured out how to pre-create all of the needed assets. So that piece of code is in the code, which is running behind the scenes with the site. But now that, Jim, you're asking what is the piece of code, and the answer is I can't remember. And that means that I need to double check with Paolo and Irvin whenever they are coming back from the holiday. But in the site source code is actually in here. So the whole lookbook site is open source. It's in the SP provisioning service. It's basically the behind of the scenes source code. And this one is actually capable of completing provisioning of the site completely, including the site assets. If I remember correctly, we figured out which HTTP URL we need to hit from an HTTP request perspective, which will then initiate the creation of site assets. And trust me, it's crazy. It's unbelievable that we need to do that. Bit of a frustrating thing, but it's a decision what engineering did to save some of the resources. And we're still having internally that debate that, well, there should be some sort of a signal that we want the site properly to be completely provisioned rather than these hacks. So, yeah.
I can't think of an instance of a site where we've never used site assets.
Yep, I know.
And yet style library is still there. So
I know.
Form templates.
So a lot of those things, I can explain this a bit, even though this is getting recorded. A lot of those things is coming also from the mental mindset that, okay, so the site assets let's save from the site assets. Can we save from the site designs and site styles and whatever the other libraries are? There's a lot of people who basically might be looking on those and I don't know what they are. Let's not change the code so that we're not breaking anything, just in case. So unfortunately, it's not necessarily based on facts. Some of the design and technical decisions, it might be based on the fear of accidentally breaking something in the dependencies. And SharePoint is unfortunately so complex system with 2 decades of history that there are areas which people just don't know. So, but good feedback, Jim. Let's figure out the URL, and Paul is highly interested in the URL as well. Yeah.
Someone posted it to the chat.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is for the script. It is actually, yeah. It's probably, yeah. It is actually that one.
Cool.
You are 100% correct. Thank you, Gautam. Sorry, Gautam.
Oh, that's embarrassing. It's in the script sample repo.
But basically that means that to be able to pre-provision, to be able to start uploading assets to the site asset library, you will need to hit this URL explicitly. So creating a site is not enough. You need to hit this one, and then you are able to start uploading assets. It is painful, for sure, and I understand that. This is a classical challenge of internal communication challenges in Microsoft. So different priorities across different organizations. Thanks, Gautam. Really, really good. And Sean actually had it as well. So see, yeah, that's really good. This is why community is awesome. Community can help others in the community. This works. And this one, yeah. So by the way, for those who are not aware, so the Bmp Script Samples is a really, really, really powerful location also to find different automations and scripts and all of that stuff. So, and we do welcome contributions. So Paul Pollack is leading this effort, and you're able to submit your own samples in. And we're looking into that. It's not the case yet. So the scripts are not yet in the unified sample gallery, but we're looking into getting them there as well. And the unified sample gallery, we talked about this one quite a few times, but if we go in here, it's in the adoption.microsoft.com. So behind of the scenes, what we're doing is that we are gathering all of the samples from GitHub and then surfacing them in the sample solution gallery. And the coolest thing, at least from my perspective, or one of the cool things, is that you can actually watch the samples also based on the user who contributed. So you can actually see that Luis Manes has contributed X amount of samples and so on, which is really, really cool. So huge.
And the script samples is part of the Pmp Recognition program too. So for those that are perhaps unaware of the recognition program, it is a program that we started to recognize and celebrate all of the contributions you're making. And it is partnered with Credly, the same Credly that manages all of the certifications for Microsoft. So when you get a Microsoft certification, you'll be seeing more badges coming here. The script samples, independent publisher connectors, working with Luisa right now on badges for blog authors. So a lot of exciting things, but this is all going to be associated. You can share it and associate it to your LinkedIn profile through Twitter, completely free. And as Vesa shows right there, you just need you to opt in, which you can do if you scroll up to the top. There is a link to opt in. Right. Yep. Oh, right there. Oh.
Let me click that.
Takes you right down, right there.
That.
Yep.
There we go.
And you opt in, and we'll associate you. And you only have to do it once. And we'll continue to monitor all of your contributions. And we're going to be automating some of that coming up in 2022. It's been a bit of a manual process so far. Wanted to make sure that the community liked it, and we've seen a lot of positive feedback on that. So it's absolutely free.
Good. Now, Craig was asking related on the loop. We can talk about it that a bit. So the Microsoft Loop, which was previewed with a cool video in Ignite. So there will be for sure more information and schedules and all of that available next year. It's super exciting. People are super kind of stoked about the opportunities, and some of the features are already working in the Microsoft Teams. So behind of the scenes, it's taking advantage of the Fluid framework. But then, will it be its own application? Maybe, maybe not. We showed that in the video. Will it be integrated to Teams, SharePoint, Office? Absolutely. It's a matter of time when that happens. But we are on this journey, and the first kind of the Fluid framework was introduced already 2.5 years ago as a preview, and then the Microsoft Loop is now kind of the refresh of that mental mindset with a proper scenario and a cool video showing the art of possible, but no timelines at this point really to share more than that. But if you're looking into actually getting started on building something, if you're looking into really building on that same technology, there is actually already documentation available. So behind of the Microsoft Loop, there's Fluid framework, and that is actually the technology behind of it. We actually had the first NDA developed dev kitchen on this one already 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago. Which is actually pretty cool. It has existed and it has been evolved internally first and then externally quite a long time. And there's a lot of cool quick start guidance on how to get started and using things and how you understand how the data is being flown between the browsers. So really cool technology for sure. And it's going to get then adapted one step at a time more and more by Teams, SharePoint, all of the other applications in Microsoft 365 for sure. So. Good. Yeah.
Is it being renamed? So it's got Azure Fluid Relay at the top there as a public preview. Is that the same thing?
Yes, that's the same thing. So behind of the scenes, so the Fluid framework is the technology which you are using to get started, but you will need to have the service, which is the centralized hub, which is taking basically rerouting the changes between the clients. So technically how everything works in this case is that you are operating one file. And then as you modify the file, your modifications are getting replicated across the different other clients which are connected to the file. And the Azure Fluid Relay is basically the service where the files are getting created. And so if you are implementing non-Microsoft 365 experiences, then you can take advantage of this one for creating those components. That's kind of the mental mindset. And then more and more in future, we will see also support in Microsoft 365, because then you can actually create those fluid components directly in Microsoft 365. And if I remember correctly, let's see if I can, let me open up a dev tenant. And now if I go to office.com, and if I sign in, and in here, I think we still have it available, because that's actually, no, that's the list. And if we create, where is the dynamic reports? We used to have it here. I know that somebody in this call is now saying, well, why can't, how does the Microsoft person doesn't know about this? It was here. Maybe it's not here anymore. Maybe they changed it for a while and then it will come back later, because we were able to create fluid component documents.
They moved stuff to dog food and then they brought it back to preview somewhere. I forget. I've got like an internal link to it, but there's not a public one, I don't think.
Yeah. Kremlin's moved it, absolutely. Apparently, they're looking into creating a new movie on Kremlins, which is pretty cool. So it's in development. It would be pretty very cool. So if you don't know what's Kremlins, check it out. It was a cool kids movie or family movie, but don't get them wet. Huge. That's a good actually blog post. So this is relatively new blog post from 2 weeks ago from Matangi, related on the updated situation on Fluid. So this is mainly referencing the documentation and basically updating the situation where we are, but there is no timelines. Thank you, Brad, on that. There's no timelines to be shared at this point. One of the things, of course, we were super concerned about, let's say, sharing any timelines externally, because if we then delay that timeline, that can have challenges for the customers and so on. So that's why we are always pretty cautious about providing any exact dates. So can you show me the Microsoft 365 homepage looks like? So in the Microsoft 365 homepage, so now I'm actually in the office.com. So this is intended to be my personal, my view on the Microsoft 365. But then if we're looking into doing corporate view, and because I'm signed in this tenant and I'm already in Contoso Electronics, if I open up that one, that will open up the corporate welcome page, which in my case, it's just a demo content provisioned using the lookbook with the dashboard and all of that capabilities available in here. I cannot show what we have in the Microsoft starting point, because there might be some confidential information over there. So that's why we have this example.
And there's some updates coming that I don't think everything has been shared publicly. So yes. Yeah.
And of course, the same thing if you go to the teams.microsoft.com, for those who are not super familiar with that. So that's basically SharePoint Online, but then as we're looking the same information through Microsoft Teams, then it's Viva Connection Desktop. So, and poof, the SharePoint name doesn't exist anymore. Well, it does, maybe in the background, but rebranding, refreshing. So.
And I think we talked about it on a previous call about the team search is getting updated as well. So no longer, well, we're merging together the search experience, so you don't have this kind of disconnected, hey, Teams shows you one thing and then Bing and SharePoint and Office.com show you something different. Those are getting closer and closer together. So look for that releasing into the various rings over the coming months and quarters.
Yeah. And by the way, Andrea is saying that she's seeing already the new page. So
awesome.
That relates on
targeted release tenants so far,
or a subset of those as well. So it's the way we are kind of rolling out features is always that even with targeted tenants, you first get 10% of them having the feature, then 20%, then 25, 50, and so on. And one of the reasons why we do that is that it's kind of a yelling test. As we roll out changes in, if we start seeing people yelling, "Oh, it's broken," then we roll back. So rather than exactly, rather than pushing 100% and then being like, "Oh my," Andre, if you want show, you can absolutely. So we still have, well, we have 3 minutes. You can do a quick teaser if you want. Either way, no. One thing related on the rolling out of the feature, just to clarify that as well. So, like in my case, I have a random tenant here, which I've been using for many years, which is the M365 Bmp. It's just a tenant which I claimed at some point. There's no way for you to control, are you in the top 10% or 20% or 50 or 60, which is a bit of a challenge. So at some point, we've been having internal discussions that should we introduce back the Cannery Tenant kind of a model, which was intended to be like, hey, you get always the earliest possible capabilities available. One of the challenges of doing that is actually the benefit of getting that for you is in matter of days. So whenever somebody makes a decision that we're rolling out features, you might get 24 hours, 48 hours. And then the overhead of doing that and managing those tenants was too much. So there was a decision not to do that. But I know that we're internally looking potentially on opportunities for signing up to be in the early features rather than in the later features, because it would be nice to be in the early features, because some of the MVPs and some of the customers are in the early targeted tenants, but some are not. So let's come back on that one, Paul, maybe at some point. But I guess we're running out of time. So let me go back on the slides. So just to recap on this one was intended to be Q&A, MA, and just random discussion or ad hoc demos. Next Tuesday, we already have community Microsoft demos scheduled for next Tuesday, and Thursday this week we also have 3 demos coming up as well. We talked about that schedule already. And then for all of the different community calls and options, this is the full list of things. You can always go to the AKMS M365 Bmp to download the needed invites, and from there you can actually find the location where the recordings are coming, social media, and all of those assets as well. And the recording of this one will be actually also released, even though this was kind of a reflow ad hoc demos. Why not? Because no harm for anybody. If there's any questions or somebody needs to show something what we showed today to somebody else, it will be in YouTube. The next community call will be in January 4th. It's pretty crazy. It's 2022. It feels like early 2020 right now still. So it's pretty crazy that we're heading there. But have a great rest of the week. If we don't see you on the next Thursday call, have a great New Year Eve. That's coming up on Friday. But that's it for this time. So one more call before we close up for the year. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining. Good discussion. Let's stay in touch. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Happy New Year.